Welcome to this episode where we're going to digress a little bit on a film that we all got to see over the weekend, which was Godzilla minus one, or G,
Godzilla.
G minus one. I got to
Godzilla
see it
minus.
with my buddy Eric. We went to
Is there?
the theaters. It was Saturday evening, I
You
think it
guys
was.
went to you went to see the movies together, but you went to separate theaters. That's
No.
strange.
No, there's only
I
one
know,
theater. But
I know.
yeah, it was really limited showtimes, which is a sad deal because I don't know what was playing in the Ultra Screen or the IMAX, but this would
What's
have
a?
benefited from that a lot.
What
It's a
were
foreign
the
film, so they always put those on the smaller screens.
what were the showtimes like for you? I'm curious.
It was like noon, 3, and 9 p.m.
Oh, geez, wow.
So yeah, or no, it could have been like 6. I think there was one for 6. But yeah, we went to the
Yeah.
9. When did you see it, Wilson?
I saw it on Saturday, and I don't know exactly why, but it was like it was certainly more widely available, but it was kind of like all over the place. Like I had to travel, 15, 20 minutes to go see it, but they had like, gosh, 10, 15, 12, 30, 2 something, a 4 something, a 6, a 9. So it certainly had more showings, and but it was I went to the 10, 15 one just to get it, like see it, and then have the rest of my day and everything. But
What was your theater experience like? Was there a lot of people there, or is it just you?
it was okay. There was probably it was not in a very big theater. I don't at the theater that I went to, there wasn't an option to see it in IMAX, which was strange. I can't even tell you like what was planned. I'd have to look at like what else was out that weekend and what was actually on the IMAX screen.
Hmm.
Um, but there was I'm gonna probably say like maybe 20 people in the theater, including me.
That could have been the amount of people that were in our theater, right, Eric? Maybe a little bit less.
Roughly, yeah.
Wasn't packed. It was a smaller like theater that they had the screening in, but it was at like an AMC where they had like fucking 20 screens showing.
Y- Yeah, I don't know if
Um,
Eric wants to share the experience we had, but I mean, for the majority of it, like all the middle seats of the theater were taken, or like, oh well,
Yeah.
besides like we took one row for ourselves, like sort of in the middle, and so it seemed like everybody was just sitting in one long line watching this movie. And then it was funny because when another guy showed up that sat in front of Eric, like sat directly in front of him, but
Yeah.
he had the whole aisle to like spread it like himself across, and like, but he just chose right in front of Eric.
well,
Eric's
Yeah.
feet were like
theoretically, he
pushing.
chose that seat, like the reserved seating shit.
Well,
Like,
they're reserved, but he had the whole row.
He didn't.
yeah,
Like,
it's
nobody else
just
showed up, but I mean,
Because there
sometimes.
it was West Acres, so there's no like reclining seats unless you're at
Dream
the
Lounge.
like the Ultra Screen.
Mm.
So it was like regular seats, which I hadn't sat in years. And then so I was like, okay, if no one's probably gonna sit in front of me, so I can put my feet up on one of the chairs. Nope, dude, right in front of me. I was like, son of a bitch, dude.
I was like, but nobody's in front of me, and I'm like, oh, I got some leg room here.
Yeah.
Um,
So, I'm gonna because I'm probably gonna be the person that like is compelled to talk the most during this section. To save that from happening, I'm gonna just quick fire off a few things that I caught that were like,
Oh no,
um,
dude, you can rule it. You can do it.
no. I want to hear about you guys. But I'm gonna just quick off the bat list off a few things that I noticed that to me were like good nods or good like inclusions for Godzilla stuff. And I'm going to try and keep this, spoiler free for anybody who hasn't seen it. But the very, very beginning of the movie, I think it's like the first shot that we see Odo Island, and I was like, "Oh fuck yeah!" Because that is a direct reference to the 1954. That's where Godzilla first appears, and there's like, local legends about it and shit.
because yeah, they say the locals call it Godzilla. So like, we don't know how Godzilla got his name. We just know through word of mouth that, hey, the
Mhm.
locals call this thing Godzilla, and they're like, okay, let's start calling it that then.
And part of what they talk about, and as the locals talk about, like, oh, every time the we like send like we strap young ladies to rafts and send them out to sea as an offering to keep the bounty of fish coming in, because sometimes the fish will just stop coming because Godzilla's angry at us. So it was interesting to have like the presence of the dead sea fish like being a visual signal for him.
Right.
Of course, the Ifukube score was not unexpected, but certainly not like it's always welcome, but it's never a like it's 100% going to be there. But that was just a treat, like, seeing this boy stomp into the city, hearing that iconic score, and just like, oh, hell yeah.
And they didn't
Right.
overuse it, I don't think. Like, they used it in such appropriate times. And it was like, oh, fuck, yeah, here
It was
we
only
go.
a couple times, and what they did is they used that main the main like motif of it, and then it's just part of a greater composition. They don't actually use that like his composition for the score. It's more of like, hey, here's the part that
Different
everybody knows
arrangement.
and loves, and then we're gonna do our different arrangement after that. Without saying what the ending is, the ending of this movie to me felt like not a copying, but a direct, very specific homage to a previous Godzilla movie.
Oh yeah.
Like, you mean ending? Do you mean like the sounds that played after the credits? Or do you just mean the visual ending?
I don't know if shit played after the credits or not. I left when the credits started rolling because I had to get going. But like,
Okay.
I mean, the last like real shot of the movie is underwater. It's of this one specific thing, and to me that was like, oh, they're calling out directly to this one specific movie.
Yep. Okay.
There were a couple of times that I noticed, like, I think it was like maybe hanging up in one of these shacks or something like that. I was like, is that a nod to Mothra? Because it was like a lepidopterist type butterfly or moth or something that was like on a wall. I don't think that's what it was, but to me, I read that as like, oh, that could be a little reference. And then that part right there with the tanks, just if I could have asked for one more thing, it would have been in that moment where like the tanks and the military are doing something in that scene, to have like the fucking G-Force or like SDF theme playing. But yeah, this to me is the best written Godzilla movie that there's ever been, because you could take Godzilla out of this movie and still have it be a compelling, interesting story.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I think it's the best acted, close to like the first film, and like the scientists that were kind of coming up with a plan to destroy Godzilla, like those plannings of how to deal with the threat were really captivating in the first film, and then this one I cared even more with their plight and their plan of attack, because it all seemed theoretically like sound, and like they had all these different divisions of the government and these different like private companies to come and help out. I mean, that whole aspect was really interesting. So I was more gravitated to like their plan of the story and the dynamics between the government and these just crew of guys and scientists and just even volunteers that are like, hey, we just got to deal with this threat together and let's fucking get it.
How familiar are you guys with the history of like post-war Japan, World War II, or like, the very end of the war for them kind of shit?
I mean, not a scholar in it, but I know of it.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
I mean, like the trailers and the advertisements for this are talking about like them being at basically zero, but it really was like they were occupied by the U.S. Had completely disarmed, or were in the process of completely disarming themselves. So yeah, not only was their country devastated, as you're seeing here, but like they just had no way to defend themselves in any way. And the major part of this, why they had to like, oh, the Japanese government's not going to do shit. The U.S. government, who's occupying this place, is going to fuck off now. Like they're still going to be occupying you, but they're majorly going to fuck off because they're going to start turning their attention to the Soviets. So it was like, yeah, at the end when it's like all of these people who were part of the Imperial Army and Navy and shit, they are basically like disavowed or just left in the dust, and they're like, well, guess we'll have to fend for ourselves, fellas. It had a very like Sandlot or like Goonies-esque feel of people just like coming together for a common cause.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, you definitely got the feel that like everybody's desperate, and a lot of the people that were desperate were the guys that, you know, were in the war or in the Navy, and they don't have anywhere to turn, and they're just like, you know what? Yeah, I'll help out with my government. This seems like something that would give me honor or some kind of semblance of, you know, justification for what we just went through. Like, I need to provide some kind of protection to the citizens of my country, and they chose to like, I'll fight this fucking atomic monster.
There is one that I want to talk about, but I don't want to like have it be a big spoiler. Which I don't even. I don't know. I don't know that it would be, but I'm just gonna say this character here, Noriko,
Yeah.
the lady that starts living with him, with Koichi. Like the last thing that we see of her, there's like a specific thing that happens, and it kind of leaves you saying like, what was that?
Yep.
I don't really know what that was about specifically. I think it was supposed to be a like visual representation of basically like you know, the idea that like the war may be over, and not only that, but this Godzilla attack may be over. But there are still going to be lingering effects that are around, whether that's like, you know, fallout, radiation. Like these people, or at least this character specifically, will continue to be affected by these events, even if it's not like directly because of a giant fucking monster.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know if there is like supposed to be more to it than that, in the same way that like you could explain away some stuff in Shin Godzilla or other things being like, oh, it's because of this specifically. I think it was just more of a symbolic thing that we shouldn't read too much into, but it is just worth mentioning because it was a little bit weird.
Gotcha. See, this stuff here on the boat was another thing that I was like, they're borrowing from the best. Like, this is like a Jaws. The whole movie, I think, is like a mesh between like Jaws, Top Gun, and like a kaiju flick, and then a really good like family kind of unit that comes together throughout, with the scientists and the shipping guys coming
Noda
together.
and the captain and the
Yeah,
kid.
Noda's face, his facial expressions when he was giving those like lectures and stuff were the best. Like he was squinting into the projector.
Yeah.
He's just like, he looked like a mad scientist. Like, oh yeah, we gotta, you know, he's squinting really hard. We gotta freaking get this monster, guys. But the whole like the Quint aspect of that main guy on the ship, because he has like the Quint hat and he's got like, you know, like equivalent to a Quint hat, but his whole like demeanor towards it's like, I forgot the scene what it was, but he's like, we gotta get out of here or something like that. We don't...
Yeah, it's like, right, it's they're waiting. They know that like they're basically like waiting next to that huge shipwreck, and they're like, wait, what are we doing here? Oh, a giant monster's coming, and we're basically buying time. And he's like, yeah, I guess it's our duty. And then the second Godzilla shows up, he's like, nah, we're fucking out of here, bro.
Nope, let's leave. He's like just screaming, we're gone.
Yeah,
their whole dynamic
everything
was
on the
great.
boat like that was awesome.
Well, and like the fact that they did the blowing up, like smile you son of a bitch kind of thing to Godzilla, and like just a side of Godzilla's cheek blows up, but then like regenerates so quick. I was
Yeah.
like, damn, that's like even that
Yeah,
regeneration
that was
effect.
impressive.
That was really cool.
Like that's always been a thing with Godzilla, is like his ability to regenerate and not die. But like this was like some hyper Wolverine type regeneration
Yeah.
shit. Like, instant. That
level.
was crazy.
And yeah, like it barely made a dent. So the main character's origins were landing on that island after he's been assigned to be a kamikaze pilot, which was a big part of the movie, and how the kamikazes were kind of made that way. It made like the movie made it seem like since their equipment was so faulty and not up to snuff, the best thing you could do, instead of like if you find yourself out of ammo or in a tailspin of some kind, fly that sucker into a boat or fly that sucker into another plane or like do something. So you're basically given a death sentence.
Yeah, they would have payloads attached to them, and they would be pumped full of like basically methamphetamine. Like they would just be pumped so full of these uppers that would get them in this craze, and then they would be like having their commanding officers and all these people like basically just shouting at them like, this is for honor and this is blah blah blah. Like it was like a short-term super indoctrination.
Yeah.
And then they're just sent off into the air with a fucking active payload attached to them, and like just like go die for your country, even though we've already lost the war.
And that was such a desperate attempt at some kind of semblance of like, we still preserve our honor, but also they made a good point in the movie to address how little they give a shit about life. Because I think it was Noto that said like, we don't care too much, we don't value life that much in Japan. We don't provide our servicemen with ejector seats, or we don't know how to increase our supply chains, and massive starvation that occurred from it. They didn't plan for any of this stuff, so it's like for some reason there's the discussion about the value of life, and you can see how it's affecting this whole country. But yeah, it was a good poignant moment in the film, because yes, movies have been made about the issues of starvation and the limited supply of like food getting to people, and that was a big cause of deaths too, was just their lack of planning with their food supplies.
Well, it's part of it has, I think, in my opinion, it has to come down to the fact that for fucking centuries, the island nation of Japan was basically impregnable. They had like these specific currents and typhoons and things that would happen that other countries could not get ships to land there. And if they did, they got cut down like before they even got too far. So it was, for a long time, they were like just naturally kind of protected, until technology got so great that once people had a reason, whether that be the Americans with Pearl Harbor or the other allies going in there, they now had the technology to get through some of those natural barriers. So they probably were thinking like, oh, like we've been able to fend off invaders for so long that like we don't need to be so worried about this. We don't need to be so concerned with the logistics of how we're going to keep not only Japan but the whole like Pacific under our reign. That's a huge space, and it's like, yeah, instead of it being mainly your troops and your allies' troops in that area, the whole ocean is just swathed with American destroyers and the fucking like Navy, and just it's
Yeah, good point. The other things that were a good dynamic to make this film work was this family unit that comes together. Like our main protag here just hanging out in this makeshift family. Like he didn't commit to any kind of relationship, but he did provide his money went towards the kid, went towards building a house to provide for I'm not with this woman, but I'm going to provide for her and give her some kind of home to come to, or
Right.
to be sheltered from the situation. And it was even addressed by his crew, his boys. Were like, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. Like, so that's not the kid's mom? And he's like, nah.
And then you married her, and now you're a family. He's like, nah, bro, we didn't get married. And they're like, what?
What?
Family brought together by tragedy.
Yeah, and I thought that I connected with that a little bit more because I cared more about the kid, because the kid wasn't used really ham-fistedly, like
No.
putting the kid in a precarious situation, like
Mhm.
he would always provide for the kid and make sure the kid was looked after if he went to go do something. Like, he was on a death march because he was trying to be honorable and do the honorable thing the whole movie, and trying to get the courage to do that. So he would always leave the family unit, his makeshift family, to go put himself in harm's way or do something to help out.
The whole idea of how they like that being a job, cleaning up mines and stuff, makes total sense. And it to me, I'm not like super familiar with the techniques they use, so I'm not sure if like what they depicted was something that they did, but it was so interesting to be like, yep, we've got two wooden boats, so
I like that. Yeah, I really like that.
magnetic mines don't like suck to us, and then we've got a chain that basically attaches the two boats that cuts the mines off, and then we just blow it up with a gun. That's like, man, that's a really simple and effective way to take care of it, but still so fucking dangerous.
I
And the
wanted
fact
to
that
just
they're,
see
like-
that movie at that point in the movie. I was just like, you know what? This would make a really compelling movie. It's just these guys
Yeah.
scrubbing the ocean and cutting the landmines and just having a dude at a turret blow them up.
But if you kept everything else of like Koichi, Noriko, Aki coming together as a family after the war and like rebuilding, and if Godzilla wasn't even a part of this, him just going out and cleaning up mines and stuff, this still would have been a very like interesting and compelling movie, I think.
Yeah, very true.
But we get the treat of big fucking G being in this
Oh my
movie,
God.
and I gotta say,
When G showed up,
oh,
it was like a bomb going off, and it was good.
Oh, dude, when he
like,
first shows up at the very beginning, it was all, it was in darkness, and I was like, okay, I see what's going on here. But then every single time he showed up afterwards, it was, just broad daylight. Here's the boy.
yeah, that was a bit unusual because two things that I'll say about this movie, like visually, is the color grading, and the color grading is so different than pretty much every other Godzilla movie. It's very rich. A lot of them are not like washed out, but they have a very specific mood to the colors and the lighting, and most of that is due to the fact that, like, yeah, a lot of the Godzilla attacks in the older movies, it's when he's come around and it's already nighttime, or like the monster fights might be in day, but it's like the Showa era where it's like cheaply made suits and stuff. And it was just so refreshing to have like over 90% of the Godzilla appearances be in like broad daylight.
Mm.
And even in the
Mhm.
beginning, it was darkness, but it was like they didn't shy away from showing him. It was just that
Oh,
it
no.
was at nighttime.
Yep.
It was effective because, yeah, like, you don't want to blow all your load on that scene. You do want to understand the threat,
Mhm.
and you want to get that scene out of the way where it shows that this guy's a coward, or show him in that state, and then how he has to deal with the situation of him not, like, even knowing in hindsight that even if he did shoot at Godzilla, it wouldn't have done anything to him. If bombs
Yeah.
can't do shit, then that gun could not do anything.
But that scene of like that attack happening took place within like 5 minutes of the movie starting, so it's good like for pacing to have it be like right off the bat, here we go. And then it was refreshing to, like, the second that he showed up, I think it was Tachibana, the character who was like the commanding officer at that island, was like, oh, we're fucked. Everybody run. He wasn't like blindly like, all right, boys, get out your rifles and start firing. He was like, holy fucking shit, that's a huge monster. We gotta go.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. That guy's character too was, he had some kind of redemption arc too. When he was writing him letters to like, hey, I need you to fix this plane or you to upgrade this plane. That like tying that to the beginning, towards the end when he was wanting to like be the pilot that does lure Godzilla to this, plan that they have to sink him. It was really effective to like bring him back into the fold after being out of the movie for so long because of that. Like, I want you to see how dedicated I am to this mission, because he had to prove it to that guy, because after he got all of his men killed, he's like, dude, I'm gonna do this for you. And he like kept all those letters and pictures that he like forced on him, like, this is your doing, so you have to live with this. And he's like, well, this is me living with it, bud. Like, brother, watch me do this, dude. Watch me fly this plane, dude.
When you've got Koichi in a fucking plane buzzing around Godzilla's head, and you've got 93,573 screaming Hulkamaniacs going at you, brother, that's when you want to have a climax for a Godzilla movie, brother.
But yeah, super effective. A lot of the film, like Eric and I mean, Eric can admit that he did doze off a couple times, and it was
every time they were on the water, all of a sudden I just start nodding and be like, nope, nope, don't do that.
Keep on snoozing.
I was like,
but then I'd get back. I never like fully fell asleep. I just like
I heard him heavy breathing a little bit, and then I was like, it's fine, nothing's happening right now. Like, it is a good time to fall asleep if you do. Because I know that a second later it would be like Godzilla terrorizing a town, and he'd be like, "Oh, here we go, wake up."
Man, it's
one of my favorite shots. I think they show it in the trailers, just when he's like swimming behind the ship, where it's just a shot of his like head and stuff above the water.
That was
swimming
with his eyes, his almost human-like eyes just staring down at his prey. I was like, damn, that's freaky.
Yeah, this was like a depiction, because I think in my opinion, one of the more scary or viscerally terrifying depictions of Godzilla was Shin Godzilla, just based on his like design.
Yeah.
But this, like, there was some expression, mainly with like the intensity of the eyes, but there was a few other things that happened where like this is a genuinely imposing, scary Godzilla, where he's in the beginning of the movie, he's fucking chomping down on people and just tossing them.
Yep.
He's not even eating anybody, or he's just fucking throwing them around. And then when he's attacking the city, he goes out of his way to be like, this building, fuck that building in particular.
Yep. And those dudes that were like screaming, I was telling Bracho, that was one of my favorite scenes of like the classic kind of like radio host or, TV host kind of telling the masses like, all right, Godzilla's here. He's walking down Main Street, and he's coming. He's walking right by me. I see him, and he's like describing everything he's seeing and witnessing, and then just trying to do his job, but like screaming in terror. Because even this scene, like, if you see this guy chasing you when you're on a rickety wooden boat, and you just see his eyes peer at you in these big spiky spines peeking out of the water, scary. I'd be like Noto, just like yelling and like, go faster, get me out of here.
The way that they do the atomic breath in this, where it really has to charge. It's not, because in a lot of the older movies, he basically just like he may charge up for a second, but he, especially in the 1954 one, he kind of just, there's a lot of times where he just like opens his mouth and it's boom coming right out, and it's like a stream that he's doing, and then he closes his mouth and it's done. But this is like, he's got to charge up the coils, he's got to get into firing position, and then he pulls his own trigger, and it's like a rail gun that ends in a nuclear explosion with the mushroom cloud and everything. It just fucking
dude,
boom.
When that happens, when he lets loose on people in the fucking movie, it in the town, you feel like you're in the middle of some epic event.
Yeah, I mean, this I'm excited to watch this again because like yes, it will be fun and entertaining to see the Godzilla scenes, but it genuinely is like a well acted, well written movie you care about for not the first time in the world, but it's rare that you genuinely care about the human characters and like you may like them because they're like funny or you like their dynamic or like it's not because of their being like genuinely having a good story attached to them, you know?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And a lot of the times in older Godzillas, you're following a bunch of different stories, and rarely do they cross paths until like the very end. But like, there's always from the 70s, there's always like a little kid running around, or like a couple little kids doing their kind of like mission, and then there's scientists that are always involved. But like there seems like it was way more cohesive, and the pacing was very appropriate. Like they didn't spend too much time on things. You got a chance to breathe with all the characters and understand everybody's personality, and that really helped.
4DX. Jeez, so many big fucking formats for a movie. What's really impressive is how many like CG or visual effects shots are in this movie that you wouldn't necessarily think are a visual effects shot.
Yeah.
And they pulled it off very, very well. It was like it wasn't until I saw a couple of behind the scenes things where I was like, I didn't know that was a visual effects shot, but they did a fantastic job with it.
Yeah, and like I've said before, Godzilla and King Kong, the 30s one, like
What?
the
The 60s?
King Kong I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Just
There's a couple Kongs.
yeah, the earliest King Kong was in the 30s.
Yeah.
But even with
King Kong.
Godzilla, but having special effects artists create their movie magic with those properties, Kong, Godzilla, for the time, they did a lot of really interesting things like forced perspective, guy in a suit, or making big scaled hands to fit an actual life-size human person in them.
16-foot full animatronics of Godzilla and shit. Yeah.
Yeah, so like these types of movies are the movies that bring people to the theaters because they're transported to like a different world where the movie magic is at the forefront. You're seeing these technicians of their craft to like convey this message. I mean, with King Kong having it be just an analogy for Beauty and the Beast, but Godzilla being an analogy for just atomic destruction, like an answer to like the atom bomb going off. Like this is like a cautionary tale kind of thing, where Godzilla is basically a representation of atomic energy, and having that be featured, but also showing all the techniques and craft that go into making this thing feel alive is really it really impresses me and makes me like really appreciate the artists and just the storytellers, because even from what I heard, the producer and the director of this movie of -1, they're also credited for doing some of the special effects. They're special effects artists.
So the director Takashi Yamazaki, he directed it, he wrote it, and he was the visual effects supervisor. So from almost step one to the very end of it being produced, he was the person with this vision in mind, helping execute it on so many levels, especially as a visual effects artist. Like he's talked about, like, yeah, we had all of our different teams working on stuff, and if some of them were falling behind, I would say, fuck it, I'm gonna just dive in and do it myself, not because they can't do it, but I've got this thing locked in, and it really, really shows in this.
Yeah, and in the credits, Eric pointed out that there was a credit thanks for Square Enix. And I was like, oh, I wonder if they provided some kind of engine for them.
Yeah, interesting. God, that little girl was so cute.
she
Yeah.
she was reminding me a lot of Good Morning, the
Yeah.
little fucking little kid.
Well, what when did Good Morning, when was that made, or like or when was that set? Because that was set during the 60s, or was that set during the 50s?
When TVs started showing up there.
Yeah. It felt, yeah, like the inside of the home, even though it was like a newly built, um I don't want to say like ramshackle, but like it was just a
It was
cobbled together, like,
59. It was 59.
yeah, this felt not too far off from that, and I see exactly what you mean. If like this giant fucking lizard monster wasn't a part of it, you could see how it would build to the kind of neighborhood or like uh, family feeling of that community in Good Morning.
Yeah. Um, those are all CG.
Yeah, but it's very convincingly done.
Yeah, they might have had the budget to get this wooden boat and just to make it float for some of these scenes, but like they did such a good job with like the breach of Godzilla, like pushing the waves, like that was cool.
Yeah, matching the actual physical waves that are being made by this boat with the CG water around it, at it, like when that mesh happens and how they are able to like mask it so well.
Yeah, they figured out how to tie all the scenes together. Like when there would be a big explosion in the water would rain down on the actors. So it's like you felt the impact of these hits and how much damage it's doing.
uh, it just really is so special to me that like Ifukube is the person who scored the original, scored a lot of, I think probably like, gosh, without counting, I'm going to say at least 10. He was directly involved with at least like, if he wasn't the person to work on the score himself, he contributed a lot. But the fact that his score and his themes are used so frequently throughout the franchise, and he was also the person that came up with Godzilla's roar,
Oh,
and
interesting.
it's just so special that it like lives on to this day, and it's so indelible. Did you guys know that basically for years and years and years, for decades, it is a the new Godzilla movies, when they've been coming out on like a bi-yearly or like on a more frequent basis, they would come out on Christmas. And
Oh, really?
not only that, it would be a tradition to have it be a double feature, with the first showing being the newest Hamtaro movie, and
Okay.
directly after that paired with the new Godzilla movie. And so,
That's like Barbenheimer.
well, like, but it, Godzilla has always been popular with kids, but like whether he's been a villain, a protector, any of these things, kids just fucking flocked to the theaters because they're like, I'm gonna go watch a cute little anime about a hamster,
Uh-huh.
and then I'm gonna watch Godzilla, and it was like they're inseparable to each other. There are it's and that helped lead to like some of the chibi Godzilla animated shows and all the like extended things that they've done on television and in manga and comic books and all this, and like that is so baked into the Japanese culture of like a Christmas tradition, going to see Hamtaro and Godzilla. And I would be curious if they did this with this movie, if there's a Hamtaro showing before this.
Yeah, or some kind of like cutesy anime.
Yeah.
That'd be funny.
Yeah, we should do that. We should start that tradition. Just every Christmas watch
Watching
some.
Hamtaro.
Yeah, or just some kind of cutesy anime, and then like a really hardcore Godzilla.
One thing I really liked in this is in the scene, because they do a depiction in this of the nuclear testing, the Operation Crossroads, of the Pacific testing of nuclear weaponry. There is a scene of that in here of like the U.S. fucking testing their nukes and then Godzilla being affected by it. But the way that they did it was like a shorthand, where it's like we see the explosion that mutates him, and then it just cuts to a shot of like basically Godzilla's like eye, and you see it like his skin and all this shit get burned away, and then the regeneration starts happening, and he almost like scowls, like, "Oh, you fucked up now."
Oh yeah, I remember that. That was a really that was a really concise kind of shot or sequence that I was like, that just, if you blink, you miss it, kind of thing.
It was like almost like newsreel footage, and then we get this one, like, it was cool to have like a reaction shot from Godzilla, not from his perspective, but like directly him and how he dealt with that kind of shit. And it was just like, that was a very clean, neat way to do it.
Yeah. And I mean, I understood I was almost thinking that they were triggering his defense of the heat ray, like with their guns at the beginning, but then it's just like, oh, it's just like on a recharge basis, so like he can use it without the effects of being hit by ammunitions or explosions or anything. It's just like a innate function of Godzilla. But even like that aspect of it could have been interesting too, where they're like, oh, weaponry causes him to do this. Like that could have been a really interesting kind of thing where like, no, it helps us that the Americans dismantled all of our weapons. Like we don't want him to blow us up. Let's not do that.
If I'm remembering correctly, the first time that he uses his atomic breath in this, the sequence of events is that it's that scene where they're out when they end up using the mine and everything, where he's chasing the boat. Like he attacks one of the warships that comes in or something, and they fire upon him.
Yep, they fire
and then
him.
He uses his breath from underwater, and it was almost like they taught him how, like he hadn't even realized with his new form and his new body that he was capable of that until they used heavy artillery on him, and he was like, oh wait, hold on, I feel something cooking. I feel good. I feel a little, you know.
Yeah. Boss nasty him.
Boss nasty.
Boss nasty, dude.
There have been people that have been saying like, oh, this is definitely, they fucking set this up, like the ending is direct sequel bait. And I'm like, I don't think that you have the context that you should, because to me, this is never going to be sequelized. This was a one and done thing.
Just leaves the thing open ended. It just doesn't.
But that his regeneration and the idea of Godzilla always coming back, even if it's not the same Godzilla, a Godzilla will show up in the future to fucking punish humanity or to just wreak havoc because of what we've done.
Yeah, and if they do one, like I said, when Eric and I were, talking towards the end of the movie, kind of like, yeah, the music was fucking awesome and the music was playing. The score kicks in at the very end of the credits again, and then you hear the regeneration of Godzilla, and you hear him. I think you hear like a stomp you hear
him scream.
You hear the scream. So even if they did come back to produce another kind of Godzilla movie, I think they should go like by jumping a generation or something like that, because that would make it more interesting or compelling. Like, all right, we moved past World War II and things like that. Let's get into like a different age or a different generation to focus your attention on, because then it would give Godzilla time to like recuperate, or it might be a longer process if they did like obliterate him like they did at the end.
Yeah, so 1984, The Return of Godzilla comes out, and that's the first movie in the Heisei era, technically. And the way they deal with it in there is they do say, oh shit, Godzilla is back. But it's not the same one. They say, Godzilla showed up in 1954, attacked Tokyo, and was killed by the oxygen destroyer. I don't even know if they specifically say about the oxygen destroyer. They might. I'd have to rewatch it again. But they basically say there was one in 1954. There's one again now in 1984. Not the same Godzilla. It's just another one that has come back. And like, there are people that are like, yep, knew it. Knew he was going to come back. Knew that we couldn't go too long without this motherfucker showing up and putting us in our place.
I think that's an interesting take on Godzilla. Like, if you do it generationally, it has something to do with their hubris or something that is a response to the actions of humanity that triggers Godzilla to come back and be like, I'm a force of nature, brother. I'm ready to fucking devastate you, bro. And then
And that's a fucking work, dude. That's the kayfabe. Is that you know the Godzilla's always coming back, but you don't know exactly when it's going to happen, brother.
yeah, so I think having it be a response to another catastrophe or another, humans being assholes kind of thing to the environment is an interesting way of like bringing him back in and being like, you want to nuke my fucking home, brother? I don't think that's happening on my watch now. So like just something like that could be a way they bring him back. Where World War II, awesome. Yep, that makes sense. He's gonna come back and wreak havoc. Finding something where it's pollution in the water or something like that, where he's like, you need to learn a lesson now. Like, don't you ever learn? Like, what do I have to do?
So Takashi Yamazaki, the director, has spoken about like the ending and just being like, maybe sometimes it's better if it's not just like. I wanted to leave it open because maybe it doesn't need to be completely tied up at the end. But he also said like, I'd like to make another Godzilla movie, not specifically a sequel to this, but it would be fun to make another one.
Bro, start a GoFundMe. Get him another $15 adjusted for inflation for next year.
Well, it's not uncommon to have a director make multiple Godzilla movies. Like it happened with Toshiro Honda, obviously, but there have been other directors and creatives who have worked on multiple Godzilla movies. And the thing that would work about this is like ever since what was the first one in the Reiwa? But we're now in the Reiwa era, and so like that's been Shin Godzilla. That's been this. It's been a few other movies, and none of them have really had anything to do with tying themselves to each other. And if anything, if they ever tie to a different one, it's only going back to the 1954 one.
Okay.
So it's interesting to me that like they're all so separated that you could have him come back and do a completely different story. You could have him tell a fucking Godzilla story where humans have died off and the Earth has been reclaimed by nature and Godzilla's still stomping around just being like, "This is my era, bitch."
What if
Yeah.
it's the Earth is now populated by a bunch of human-sized Godzillas, and then there arises from the ocean a Godzilla-sized human?
I'd be down for that, man. What would be what would definitely be interesting is like or what if there is it'd be weird because it's like he's typically, I mean, like 99.9% of the time, Godzilla is a result of nuclear energy somehow.
Yeah.
Or like atomic testing. So it would be cool if there was like a prehistoric one where he's like, there's other big monsters around, but there's like dinosaurs and shit. The topography of the Earth is completely different or something, or like, I don't know. Yeah, it would be. There have been so many different Godzilla movies, and they vary so wildly in tone, in content, and all of these things. It is like at the same time hard to imagine one that's like so drastically different, but it's also not out of the question. But it would be cool to see how far they could stretch their like creative concepts to how to bring this around.
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
we should talk about how great they did with the budget they had. I know it's adjusted a little bit with that 15 mil. Like, however that the transfer over is, but it might be a little bit more. But honestly, when you look at what Disney has produced as far as their television, those episodes are probably in the 20 mils, or 25, somewhere like way up there, because of the high production of effects and things like that.
The only time where like a special effects shot made me go like, okay, was like there's the one shot where I forget what was happening, but the camera it's on like one of those like warships or something, and it does like a 180 around it or something, and it looks real dicey. But the
Sure.
rest of it looks mostly great. You know what I mean?
I did have to step out of the theater twice for like just 1 minute to go pee really quick, and then the other time was I got a phone call, so I could have missed that. But yeah, I generally was super impressed by what they were able to do with the effects in this.
It was also like not only was it kind of like dicey, it was like what was the point of that at the same time?
Oh, yeah,
like it was one of those.
What was that for? Was this
Yeah.
establishing
Why did they even
something?
do that? It did, yeah, because it didn't even do that. It just kind of warped around it, and it was like, okay. And it cut to something else afterwards.
What is cool was that this was as close as we're gonna get for a release to a 70th anniversary. That's Godzilla is one of the, if not, I think the longest running movie franchise in history.
That makes sense.
It does. I can agree
Like
with that.
outside of something like that might have been in serials like Buck Rogers or Lone Ranger or like those really early.
Yeah.
But
And
then
if you're
They
again,
talking
haven't been
movies,
consistently
but-
putting shit out over.
yeah,
you know,
they
that
haven't
amount
been
of time.
consistently releasing and having yeah.
Because I didn't have content like
I mean,
the
like,
Phantom of the Opera
maybe-
or something like that. That's always like an ongoing Broadway show, but also like
But
like a really old.
It's the
movie.
same thing, though, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
the
but
same
it's
show.
all
I think like the
different.
closest maybe you get to it as far as like a movie franchise goes is like Bond, probably.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, like that. But that's fucking crazy, dude. In the echelon of cinematic pillars, you've got things like Bond. You've got things like just westerns as like there's so many things that stand as like on the shoulders of giants, like the people that fucking built this fucking industry up. And one of them is a foreign franchise about a giant atomic lizard.
Yeah.
Big old
Okay,
lizard boy.
Okay, brother.
And I love that we can have now the dichotomy of it with like a Godzilla -1, and then like the same week get a trailer for the big dumb fucking Godzilla Kong.
America. one,
Yeah.
I had a coworker, well, it was Lane Johnson. He came in
Monsters.
today, and he was just like, tell me why I should care about Godzilla Kong. And at first I started arguing, and then I was like, I left for a minute because I had to go drop something off at the post office. But I came back and I was like, that was the wrong answer. The wrong answer. You asked why you should care about it. The answer is you shouldn't. Like, don't. The movie's not probably going to be very good, but it's the spectacle. Like, it's just the fun,
Yeah,
dumb
like,
stuff in it that I'm there for. Like, I don't care about whatever they have to talk about or reveal about Hollow Earth.
You could just
shit
throw that back
or-
in his face. Like, why do you care about just seeing film in general? Do you just
Well,
do you just go
well, I
for
told it-
some what
'cause I
you
was
get
like-
out of it, or do you just want to be entertained from some dumb effects? Like,
The thing I said before I amended was like, first of all, you're taking it too seriously. If you're arguing about why you should care about
but how am I gonna feel about humanity when I get out of the film? Like, dude, like nothing.
it. I was
Just-
like, dude, you like kaiju movies like I do. If you know anything, like a strong percentage of kaiju movies, the story is just garbage. You're just there for fun fucking monster shenanigans. You know what I mean? Especially if it's American kaiju movies. Like,
Adam Wingard or somebody has like specifically stated, yeah, there's multiple like 8-minute stretches of Godzilla versus Kong, the new one, where there's no
Yep.
dialogue. It's just monsters doing monster stuff.
that's all I'm here for, dude.
They're just ooh, and
That's all I want.
Did you-
Lane was like, I could tell when I was watching it when the fucking little baby boy shows up. He's like, oh, that won Eric over. I was like, it did. I was like, that got me on its side. Like, I definitely was like, yes. But what clinched it for me was the big dumb goofy shot of Godzilla and Kong just fucking sprinting.
Just hey, do you want to have a race? Yeah, dude, let's do it.
Yep, just fucking hauling ass. I was like, that's the one that made me be like, okay, yes.
so-
Kong with his fucking Infinity Gauntlet shit he's got on. Did he get that? Did he get that at the end of the last movie?
No, that's a development from the new one where, like, I'm
Okay.
gonna guess that he gets in a fight with some kind of monster or with the Scar King early on and gets like his
Yeah.
arm broken or some shit, and then uses that not only to like help him heal but also give him stronger punches.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I was just like, that's if you want like serious Godzilla movie, you see -1. If you want big dumb stupid spectacle, you see Godzilla Kong. Like,
you
you
watch
can
the,
have both, dude. You can have both and enjoy them. Doesn't
you watch
matter.
the Nike commercial from the 80s, I think, where fucking Godzilla throws down with Charles Barkley.
Yeah, dude.
So, can you, Eric? You can probably think of one. Like there are maybe a few specific examples that I can think of where like an action or a person or something has its own very specific onomatopoeia.
Right.
Like bamf,
Snicked.
thwip. But
Bamf.
that's funny that like all of those are Marvel things.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
Kapow makes me think of Adam West Batman.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that is not
specifically tied to a character,
Yeah,
though.
that's not
Well,
specifically.
it's tied together for me just nostalgically because I used to watch Batman and just the sound of it.
But what I mean is like it's like TM or like registered trademark kind of levels almost.
Yeah.
And Godzilla's, I typed it in Command Center. He's got his own fucking onomatopoeia for his roar, his scream. It's screonk.
The Screonk, dude.
Screonk.
And that is so like charming that he's got his own official like onomatopoeia for his roar and shit. Like, they build children's slides on playgrounds in the shape of Godzilla, and it's the most fucking popular thing on the playground because kids just love Godzilla.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That picture that I posted earlier of all the Heisei era posters, or most of the Heisei era posters, that is all one artist, and to me, it's like Frank Frazetta levels of art, where it's just like every single one is beautiful, and to me, that image is just why I love the Heisei era specifically. Is they get out there, they get weird, they get so fucking awesome. Oh my god.
They're out there. I love the colors of all of them. The green and red of the first one is just awesome. It's just mostly green and then just that.
So vibrant.
Yeah.
His expressions, the details on all these different Godzillas.
Mecha Godzilla is great with all the futuristic tech. That's really cool.
With Godzilla fucking ripping like the plane in half, and you got Rodan down there clutching the egg.
And then there's like a tank with like Gatling guns and missiles at the bottom.
But the one of Godzilla clutching like the two different heads of King Ghidorah with the nuclear sub on the bottom. Oh my god.
The sub and the rocket. Yep, that's really good. Mothra's just always looking like a pretty baby.
That looks like that one has always to me looked like a weird family photo.
It's a family photo. There's like a larva, and then Godzilla's looking right at camera like, hey.
They're in the studio, and the photographer's trying to get the attention of the two.
Yeah, they're in Pennies. They're at Pennies right now, and they put a backdrop down. Like
Daddy Godzilla are like, all right, kids, smile.
All right, what backdrop do you guys want? Cloudy.
Yeah, just some nice clouds.
All right, honey, smile. Good stuff. Yeah, I would say go watch the fucking movie. Go watch -1. It's a blast, literally.
Yeah,
it's a good time to go to a movie with your family. It's a feel-good movie.
I don't think that this is appropriate for kids. I gotta say, like you need to know that they're gonna be okay with this because there are some depictions of war, loss of life, of like some dire straits.
Well, it depends on the kid, I guess. Yeah, for an age of like 12 and up is perfect.
It is rated PG-13. I think if you like have, if your kid is ready for it or not. But I would just say, like, as a general audience, don't drag your kid to this because they're probably not going to be into it. And also, it's foreign language. They're not going to be interested in reading the subtitles.
Yeah, if your kid can sit for longer than an hour comfortably, like being captivated by something, then you can bring that child to this movie. But if you have a kid that's like really distractible, like, hey, what's going on? I'd rather get up and run around and, I gotta pay.
Well, it might
Keep
also
them
be too
home.
scary for them, or like, do you really
I would
want to
just
have
say
to
just don't
explain
bring a
to them
kid to
like
this
what
movie.
the idea of a kamikaze pilot is, or like, oh, this is why everything was rubble because everybody fucking died because we dropped bombs on them.
Right.
That would depend on the parent, but yeah, I mean, I would say 12 years is a good starting. So like,
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah,
for
if your kid-
if you're a Godzilla
Okay.
fan and you have like that in your family, if like you've been watching these
Yeah.
for a long time, definitely try
If
to
you're-
bring a parent along.
If your child is ready to broach the topic of war, yeah.
And they don't touch on it gruesomely in gruesome detail. They're just like, all right,
Well, there's no gruesome.
it's after. I mean,
No, but it is directly related to World War II. Like
Mhm.
Right.
you can't have this movie without like having to have that discussion of like, what the fuck is war? Or like, why?
sorry, son, what was that? Did you just drop the F-bomb on me?
Shut up, Dad. I'm asking about Godzilla movie.
You said fucking war? That's right.
Tell me
Hey,
about that
you're-
fucking
you're-
lizard.
You're not answering me. You're moving away from the question, dipshit. Why?
I wanna know
Fucking
about that
why?
big-
All right,
What
son,
about
we
the
need to
big
talk
fucking
about
lizard?
your use of the F
Yeah,
word.
Son, we got to talk about your language.
we
Where-
should work
where's
on
this
this
coming from?
first, then we can see a movie, but you have lost that privilege, son.
Oh man, this is. I just want to do little T-Rex arms and stomp around the house and just throw my head back and like.
You want to
And just
screonk?
like-
You want to screonk the house?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, let's screonk out of here. And thanks everybody for watching our discussion, our digression on the G-Man.
Yep.
Leave your rating of the movie if
Easily.
you've seen it. How many atomic lizards out of 10?
Yep. How many screes out of Ankh are they?
How much unk do you scream?
Everybody, make a guess how many E's are in that scree in the comments below.
Hey, it's as many as you want, but the more ease you put in there, the more meaning you're putting behind it. So you
Yeah.
better come correct. You better be
I
informed.
say a minimum of 5.
I think
You need-
Wilson's being a little overzealous with his estimation there. He's got like about
No, I'm
10.
not. I'm
He's right.
absolutely
He's
not.
right, dude.
He's got
I'm
about 8.
absolutely right.
What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, you got a perfect 10 there. Screonk.
Well, he deserves at least that many in my estimation. Other people can shortchange
Well-
it, and that's fine. But
Dude, if you listen to that movie, there's a couple times where he started screeing, and I was wondering if he was ever gonna onk.
yeah,
Like he was just going. I was
Please
like,
onk.
I was
Please
like
onk.
waiting for it, and then he
Wait.
throw it on right at the end real quick, and I'm like, okay, there it is.
oh,
So he does throw some epic screes in there before his onks.
Where's my onk, dude? You're blue balling me on the onk. You're
The
edging my
onk
onk.
is the most devastating part of the movie, though. Honestly.
Yeah,
The onk and the aftermath.
The
The
onk in the
Aftermath?
aftermath. That's such a. Is that an album?
sounds like a band
title?
name. Yeah, or,
The
yeah,
onk and the
album
It's
title.
my memoir, guys.
The onk. The onk and I.
The scree. The foreword by scree.
The screes that made us.
The screes.
Scree, pray, love.
A
Scree
tale
pray
of
onk.
a tale of
Scree
two
pray
scree.
onk.
A tale of two screes. It was the best of
Scree
times.
pray
It was the onk of times.
Ah, it was the scree of times. It was the
Times
onk
of the
of
onk of
times.
time, was it?
I just posted that. I'm listening to this and I just like, this is when I want to make those T-Rex arms. This is when I want to stomp around. This
Okay.
is me in my prime listening to the Godzilla march.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. We're just going off on tangents here, so we'll be back
Oh, yeah.
discussing more Twin Peaks or something else. We'll see. Maybe it's something Christmas related. I don't know. But thanks for
Christmas
watching.
Godzilla. Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.